So I experienced Sinners, flew out to LA. My preferred destination points in Los Angeles is either the New Beverly
Okay.
to watch movies and Vista House to watch, um, both owned by Quentin Tarantino. Um, so I pretty much from not since I was a child, I come from also a place where um before the VCR, you would go to a movie house at 11 in the morning and just stay all day,
Crazy. Yeah.
sometimes watching two, three times in a row a film because you're like, there's no way I'm gonna see this ever again in life. Um, and I watched Sinners three times in a row.
What are you
Like
talking about? What?
I was obsessed.
That's amazing. I love it.
I was obsessed. So, how much experience did you have with the large format 65 millimeter? Um, well, one, that format, but also is it with IMAX, like is 65 millimeter the same, or is it two different sort of cameras that you have to operate at once?
Yeah, no, so it's the same negative running through both cameras, but in different ways. So two different cameras, like you just said. Um, the anamorphic format is the widescreen, which is that 276 Hateful Eight format that people are
Yeah.
familiar with. And that is a 65 millimeter negative running vertically through a camera, which is a Panavision camera called a System 65 camera. Um, that camera is very heavy. That camera is not necessarily a handheld camera, right? It's a studio camera. It's on a dolly or whether it's on a crane or stuff like that. There's a high speed version of that that allows you to shoot high speed that's a little bit lighter that we put on a Steadicam sometimes. For instance, the oneer that goes and follows uh, Mrs. Chow across the street and her daughter in the grocery store scene. So that's Steadicam. And then you have the IMAX camera, which is 65 negative, same negative, but it's going through the camera horizontally and it's 15 perfs, not five perfs. So much bigger negative um, real estate, different camera. So that's IMAX camera. I had not shot any of these before. And neither had my team. So Ryan,
First
myself,
timer,
yeah. Yeah.
not even for Black Panther was that used at
No,
all.
so when you see, that's the thing, I think what was so great about Ryan's video where he explained all the formats is that a lot of people get a bit confused about when they go see an IMAX film, if it's digital IMAX or if it's film IMAX. The only team that we're familiar with, like you and I, that are shooting this format would be Hoyte and, well, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan and Hoyte and then obviously Wally Pfister with The Dark Knight was the first IMAX film I went to see at the City Walk. And so
Mhm.
like that's the filmmaking team that's shooting film IMAX. A large format that goes in between the formats. So yeah, so when it came time to do this, we did our own testing, but it's not available to everyone. To be honest, those cameras that we use, there's only four of them for the system cameras. So it's not like multiple movies can be shot at the same time, because those are the cameras that are used. So if that team is not using those cameras, then we were lucky enough to get to use those cameras. So yeah, so that's the format thing. And we did, yeah, it came up. I don't know if you read, but Ryan originally saw it as a 16 millimeter picture. Um,
I
I
can't
know
even
that's
imagine.
what we were supposed to do it as. That's why I made those lenses for Last Showgirl because I was kind of thinking ahead and thinking like, oh, let me test these out, and then we can use them on that film because we shot right after. But then obviously Ryan upped the ante as he does. And we tested 35 and then we tested large format. And
So yeah, how much rehearsal do you get before it's the? It has to be intimidating, no? Like, are mistakes allowed?
I mean, I go back to that question you asked me before about my lane. I don't like how you said public speaking, you get nervous and stuff. Like, I would assume when you're
Mhm.
in your element and you're playing music, like that is your space. and I feel very confident in what I do and when I'm doing, that's where I feel most comfortable. Prep is a pain in the ass, right? When you're doing, you do all the tests and you have to like figure everything out. That's very tedious. But if you put a camera in my hand and I now know how to use it, game on, right? So I think for us, we always have on movies, let's call it like 8 to 12 weeks of prep. That's just rough number, but you have a lot of weeks to go over this stuff. You do not have 8 to 12 weeks of prep to just mess around with the camera because obviously there's a cost to that prep, right? So say you prep that kind of camera package for 5 weeks, something like that. So what that means is you're at the camera house, your ACs are at the camera house. They're testing the lenses that you want to use. We're running film through all of the magazines through the camera. We're looking at the film gate. We're doing shutter tests. So there's a lot of logistics that go into like making sure that these cameras are going to behave properly. You have a lot of technicians that are helping you do that. Um, and I always feel like for me, I said this to the students recently when I came up in film school, I didn't know as much as everybody else. So I was learning from a bunch of people. Most of them were men. And I hated the feeling when someone was staring at me, looking me in the eyes, saying, like, well, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, you're, they were forcing me to like figure out how to explain what I wanted, how I wanted the lighting to look, how I wanted to move the camera. And I felt very uncomfortable, right? And you can imagine, like, there's not, many of us. So I vowed to not have that happen to me throughout my career. So I had to go out, always make sure I knew the cameras, always make sure I knew exactly what I wanted for lighting. And I learned. So I'm a very technical person. So I make sure that my shit is tight because I don't want anyone staring at me and being like, well, I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know what you want. Um, so I find that like when I have that prep time, it becomes like a very tedious thing where I'm working with my team, making sure that like I know the shit so that when we get on set and it's like D-Day, like you say, that nothing can
Mhm.
get in the way of Ryan telling his story, that all the people that I've brought, to support him, the focus pullers, the G&E, everyone is tight. Then that gives us the creative, freedom to do what we want. So we're not having mistakes happen.
In that situation, how are you adaptable to freestyling
Mm,
or your plan B, your plan C in case something goes awry? Like is that also a part of the process of doing this?
yes. No, 100%. Because I think what Ryan loves to do too, um, and I appreciate this, is like in prep, we board everything. He wanted to board the whole film, so we boarded it. We do previs for the most complex sequences, like the musical oneer or the train sequence, stuff that we need to like guide a bunch of different teams, but also see ahead of time how it's going to plan out so we know how we're shooting it. But it doesn't mean that when we get there, we don't change it. And that's what I love is like you have a plan because you have to with that many people and this complex stuff we're doing, but we can throw it out if we want to because we're in the space. Michael B. Jordan is, we're doing a blocking with him and all of a sudden the sun's coming in or you see these special moments that you want to adapt quickly to because the actor is now in the actual space giving you shit in the rehearsal, so you don't want to stick to maybe what you thought of on the page in an office like 6 weeks ago.
Right.
So yeah, we adapt, and I love that about Ryan because we have a plan but we also like feel it out as well, and that's where you can get extra stuff or you can have different versions of things. But no, I think the more you know, the more you can play jazz on set, right? Like if you prep your shit tight before, then you can be more free flowing and not be erratic, I guess.
I would assume that um that music sequence, it was awesomely executed. One, I can't even imagine what it looked like on. That's one of the things we're obsessed about, where it's like, how did that look on page? Because I feel like what was captured wasn't specifically written on page. Like it just, I would like to think that was a moment for you. Was that the hardest sequence to shoot, or I'll ask you, what was the most difficult sequence to shoot in that film?
Yeah, it wasn't that one. I answered this once because I think someone asked me when I was talking about IMAX on something. And well, to go back to how it was beautifully written. But something like that is written in description, right? because it's so like ethereal and surreal. And so when I first read it, it has so much imagination. So you read it, it makes you think like on your own by yourself, right? When you read it. And then I have a meeting with Ryan, and then he's explaining what he wants to do with it, right? How it makes him feel, what what his drive is for the scene. And then that's when it starts to fill itself out, and then you have meetings about it. He also did some
Mhm.
rough drawings boards, prior to us fleshing it out fully. So I kind of, after you see those, you have a bit of an idea of what he wants. But it is a kind of, it evolves, but based off of what he read, if you read that, which I'm sure the script will come out at some point, um,
Mhm.
it's beautifully written. And so it is actually that cool on the page, but visually, I think it turned into something much greater, obviously. But no, I think for me, the hardest scene was the last scene that we shot, um,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
the fight in the river, the
Yeah.
night fight. And I think for
Mhm.
me, why I say that's the hardest is because number one, it's night shoots. Those are always difficult. But when there is VFX involved, I find it difficult because with VFX, we try to get as most as we can in camera, but there's a lot of stuff that's being done way later, right? And as a DP on set, you want to know what that's going to look like. You want to know how they're going to manipulate the image. You want to know the kind of the path that it's going. And so when I don't
Mhm.
have control, that's when I find it difficult because I need control. Um, so that scene, I think in itself was more complex because we did some work on it. Obviously, we did most of it in camera. We did burn him, but you can see there's a lot of collaboration between makeup, VFX, the actors, how we shot it. So that was the trickiest thing for me, I think, because it has an evolution. There's a fire tornado, all this stuff like that.
Where did you watch it for the first time with an audience?
A real audience. I mean, I don't want to call it real because it was the premiere. You know how premieres are. I wouldn't say
Right.
that's
But
a
did
real
you
audience.
go to see it with non-industry people? Like,
I did after the premiere. So I would say the first time I saw it, well, the first, we watch it 100 million times because we're doing the QC. I got to watch the print. I got to do the HDR. I got to watch the digital projection. So I see it a bunch with Ryan
so
QC in
you're
it.
tired of it?
Well, no, I don't. I think a film like this, you aren't because it makes you so happy.
Mhm.
It speaks to you, like it speaks to your history, your culture, your family, your relatives. So I didn't have a problem with it, like watching it a bunch of times. I was very proud, you're proud of it. So you're like, when you watch it, you're like, but but no, I watched it with a regular crowd, in quotes, regular at the premiere in New York. And then the first time I really watched it was at City Walk. I went to City Walk, and I watched it with a real crowd. Um, and I think I get emotional every time I watch it.